Hey people, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And
this
this
is
is
season
season
4
4
of
of
Better Let Me Tell You.
Well, I'm in the mood for it right now, but I'm like, always in the mood for it. It's like un pastelito de guayaba.
Just one. Because,
Well, You know,
I'm
what's-
never in the mood
okay,
for
you know what's like such a lie? Are like the little slivers of pastelito de guayaba that they usually have at birthday parties. It's like, who are you kidding?
Yeah, no.
Like, who are you fooling? That I'm gonna have one.
I'm going to have 1 dozen.
Like, whenever I go to like a birthday party, I'm like that person. I'm like 1, 2, 3.
I at least get 2 at a time. Especially if it's just opened. I
Since
want
when are you being so conservative?
depende
Well,
de la casa.
everybody, welcome to Pero Let Me
yes,
Tell
yes,
You,
episode
episode 153.
Yes.
To pastelito de guayaba sliver or not?
Yes, well, the answer is always yes.
Hope everybody's having a great Friday.
I just don't want to be that guy who's like, especially if they just opened up a paquete, who's like taking 10. Like, at first I'll do 2 and, kind of eyeball it and see how it's going. That's why I'm considerate that way.
You're a much better person than I am. But yeah, like, have you ever stopped and thought about how like incredible it is that each pastelito has its own shape?
They do.
So guava is square.
It's like, yeah, like a
squarish,
rectangle.
squarish, close enough.
Parallelogram.
I wouldn't say it's a rectangle.
It's a parallelogram.
Okay.
It's got 4 sides.
Then the pastelito de queso is like a little bit of a twist.
I would almost, some on the West Coast might say it resembles a log.
No.
No.
It's sort of a twist.
Okay.
Then el de guayaba y queso is a triangle.
Yeah, that there's
El
no
de
debating.
carne is circular.
Circular.
Like, I remember not whenever.
I wonder who thought of that.
I forget when it was that I was like driving and I'm like, I kind of had like a like,
You had to,
ta-da
like,
moment.
pull over
Then I'm
almost.
like, wait, each pastelito has a distinctive like shape.
Right.
I mean, these are the type of things that you live your
You take
entire
for
life.
granted. You take for
and
granted.
you never even stop to think about it.
I wonder how that started.
Probably, you know what?
That's been a
Probably
bakery.
something just to differentiate.
Yeah, probably like at a bakery. They probably made them all square at first, and they're like,
And then it's like, okay, which one has the cheese?
right, I can't tell. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially the one with guava and cheese.
That's so good. That's my favorite.
That's my favorite.
That is my
It has the
ultimate
best
favorite.
of both worlds.
It does. And I know that it's probably not bigger, but I feel like the fact that it's in a triangle makes
It's
it look
more of a value.
it looks like more of a value. Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like you're getting more. And then you've got the 2 flavors versus the 1. It's a thing.
It's more of a value.
It's a thing.
It's just incredible to me. I'm sure we've talked about this here in the podcast. How guayaba is such a big part of everything.
And yet,
in
once
South
you
Florida.
leave Broward, nobody
It's
eats
like
it.
guava. Who eats guava? And I'm like, excuse me?
It's an exotic fruit.
Right. Like, I love when people are like, oh, you put guava on, like, guava's so popular. I'm like, we put guava on everything.
Everything.
Like,
We don't put it in the café con leche because we haven't figured out how.
I mean,
Yes. Let's be honest.
but the thing with guava is that guava is really...
It's very
seriously,
potent.
It's so good that just anything goes with guava. You can put guava on cardboard and it will be delicious.
That's our new keto diet, by the way, that we're starting right now.
But just guava is so freaking good. Like, even just having a drink like with guava infused with
yeah.
guava, or like one of my favorite things is like a guava cheesecake.
Why are you making me hungry?
I know, right?
Why?
Like,
Why?
Like, I have
Why
this
are
like
you doing
super
this?
sweet tooth. Like, wait, what bakery's open 24 hours?
I think pine crust.
Pa allá vamos.
Okay,
Pine crisps are
on our way.
delicious stuff, and they're chandeliers.
Oh. You know what? If they could figure out how to put guayaba on those chandeliers, they would too.
Yeah. Have you noticed that Pinecrest bakeries, I think most of them, if not all of them, have a chandelier?
Claro, because they're fancy.
Like, you walk in, it's like
they started in pine crust.
the one in Kendall, it's like, boom, chandelier. And then it's like, oh no, the problem. What am I going to order?
Actually,
I want it all.
the reason is that they're actually little known fact. They're all owned by Sia.
Oh.
And that's why they're all have chandeliers. Yes.
So
Her name is actually Sia.
So, here at Pero Let Me Tell You, and how is everybody? We hope
Yes.
you're all having a wonderful Friday.
Want to do a quick shout out and thank you to everybody who came out to our trivia.
Yes.
This past week, our first trivia went off without a hitch. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody at Beat Culture Brewery for hosting.
Amazing. So good.
Can't wait till we do the next one. We're going to do these every month.
Yes. And if you didn't go, we're going to have a problem. We're going to nag you. We're going to have words. We're going to have a problem because we want to make trivia happen.
Yes. And you know what? Much like Gretchen Wieners ultimately did make Fetch happen, we're making trivia happen.
We are making trivia happen in Miami. But no, I mean, trivia is such a fun. It's so fun. I mean,
Very
listen,
good turnout.
not for nothing, but the prizes were really good.
Yes, they were. Gift
It
card,
was
t-shirts, Beat Culture gift card, and a gift card for Cuban guys.
I mean, not.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not the Oscars,
Okay, but I
gift
can't.
bag.
I can't eat an Oscar.
No, it's not the Oscars goodie bag.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the one that has like a Rolex in it,
I think it's a house.
Yeah. Here's the keys to your new house.
Exactly.
Actually, I want to talk about the Oscars in a minute. And, but no, what I wanted to say was, so one of the things I love about when we do our show is that, we usually try to record the show. Our shows drop on Friday, so we usually try to record them on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Fake Friday.
Yeah, barring some other things happening. Yeah.
Because just things could change so rapidly.
Well, hello. How many times haven't we been on the pulse of shit happening?
Well, last
As a result.
week, that's why I'm saying this. Last week, in episode 152,
Yeah.
I gave my last soda to LeVar Burton. And
Yes!
I went on and on and on
I just saw
about
that
how
this
LeVar
morning.
Burton is a national treasure and
Needs to be
LeVar
the host of
Burton
Jeopardy.
needs to be given every award there is. And this week,
Literally
4 or 5
today.
days later, after I said that, what did they announce?
He is officially going to be guest hosting Jeopardy.
Yep. So we made it happen. I would like to think that we had something to do
We
with
make
that.
so many things happen without happening. You know what? You're welcome, Marlins.
Oh,
You're welcome.
Here we were talking about Hopinia Stadium,
Right,
And like 3 days later,
They
we
lock
were
in a
like,
deal.
Marlins Park doesn't have a corporate sponsor. Like
They locked
It's
in-
like the only one of
Yeah.
the few like stadiums without a corporate sponsor. And 3 days later,
They did
I
it.
mean, the name is a little
Well, no, it's better than
guaranteed rate field.
Exactly.
In Chicago, where the White Sox play.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would like to think
We
that
do-
we had something to do with
Absolutely.
that. Because here at Pero Let Me Tell You, we are at the pulse.
We
of
have
things
our
happening,
pulse on
baby.
everything, babe.
So, bueno. So with things happening, we couldn't, have a show this week without talking about, the elephant in the room, which was the Derek Chauvin trial.
Yes,
And
for the murder of George Floyd.
For the murder of George Floyd. And, like many people, this was kind of something I had said more privately.
Right.
Like many people, I was very concerned about it.
Well, because we also remember the Rodney King.
Well, no, I was.
We remember
concerned-
situations
I
where
was concerned
where things did not.
I was concerned because this is why it's important to know history. It's important to know what shapes history and why we are where we are, and in all facets.
Correct.
Not only race relations, but just in general. And I really was concerned, like many people were. If there would have been an acquittal, I was very concerned for the future of this country, because say what you will about previous administrations, about previous politicians come and go.
Right.
There's waves of different
feelings and movements.
exactly. There's
yeah.
waves of different movements and things like that. That's tale as old as time. And a lot of times, like right now during this past election and all that it was very contentious. We think that it's the worst.
Right.
And when you look at history, the 1960s were a terrible time, with a lot of social unrest and things like that. So, you always look at history to kind of see where you're at and kind
ebbs and
of
flows.
lend an answer and guidance to where you're going next. But if there would have been an acquittal, I just didn't see where we could come back, how we could come back from that as not only a society, but any faith or any belief in the criminal justice system, right? Because we all know, and this is coming from somebody who loves the law, who went to law school, who knows
Still has
the law.
the loans to prove it.
Yes, knows the law. I love the law, but I'm not blind to the inequities of the law, specifically criminal law, and I just don't see, if there would have been an acquittal, how the criminal justice system of the United States could have come back from that. Because obviously the difference in this case than in other cases is that we saw this murder happen in real time.
The evidence, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Because look, there was video evidence of Rodney King. And there's been video evidence of other cops. But this happened in like real time. There were, I don't know how many dozens of people,
Onlookers,
bystanders, seeing this in real time. Without even going to the protests and not only
let's
protests
just talk
in
about
this country, but around the world.
Right. But let's just talk about the situation.
This happened in real time, and something that was very, very, very important in this case regarding the video, which in other cases, it's something that it's a wrench that's always thrown in the prosecution, is that this video had no gaps.
Okay, right. So there was no editing, quote unquote.
There was no gaps. There was no lapses in coverage. She filmed from
the moment she got there,
from the moment that they were trying to arrest him, that he was in
handcuffs.
No, he was in another car. He was like I think he was in an SUV, a police SUV. He was in another car, and they had him handcuffed, and he was he was like, "Why are you arresting me? What's going on?" But
legally, he was resisting arrest.
But there was no question that there was no doubt that he was being violent. Like, you saw the video, he was not really resisting arrest, and there was no lapse in coverage. Right?
Yeah.
There was no lapse in coverage, because if there would have been a lapse in coverage, they could have been
that cast doubt.
They could have been like,
happened.
"Oh, but in those 30 seconds that you didn't take video,
he kicked somebody,
he charged at the cop,
right.
or he said, 'I'm gonna kill you,' or whatever." Right. But there was no lapse in coverage, and I think that is what you can't refute. Like, you cannot refute that. And the thing with the prosecution in this case, and in any case, and any criminal case, is, again, the standard. You have to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
And I don't know how many people understand that. But kind of a layman's term of using it is, when the prosecution puts their case, you as a juror have to have no doubt in your mind that the person being accused of whatever the crime is did it. No doubt. No doubt. Right? So an effective defense, all that they have to do is throw a wrench at your story.
All they have to do is say there's 30 seconds
The
missing.
moment they poke a hole in it, you have reasonable doubt. That's why convictions are hard to get at. And that's why the higher the charge, it's harder to prove.
Which is probably why they went with manslaughter.
They had to go with second-degree murder here. They couldn't,
because there was no premeditation. There was no
premeditation would have been almost impossible to prove.
Right. You can't do first degree.
And if it's harder to prove, it's harder to prove to a jury.
Right.
So, I know first-degree murder sounds more. I don't want to use the word sexy, but it sounds more like
attention grabbing. It's more attention grabbing.
Justice. But the reality of the matter is that a first-degree murder charge would have been very hard to
And that happens a lot. A lot of times, people get charged with the lesser equivalent of a crime for the purpose that you're saying, because it's easier to get the conviction. So rather than let somebody skate, look, if I can only get you for 20 years, I'm gonna get the 20 years.
Obviously, I think I could speak on your behalf to say that we both are very happy with the outcome, that he was convicted. I think that this is something that shows accountability.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's something that many people had been posting, and I think that is the word to take away.
But my problem is that, like in everything in this day and age, things have become something of extremes, right? Because two things can't be true. You can say that Derek Chauvin was a total asshole and a freaking murderer and a senseless human being for doing what he did to George Floyd, but not necessarily hate cops, right?
Well, because I'm not talking about cops. I'm talking about this individual.
You don't need... Two things can be true at once.
Right.
And that's the problem that, with everything, it becomes polarized. Right?
It's not all or nothing.
And I think that with this case, I hope that with this case, people see that the problem is much more than a crooked cop. Okay, great. This guy was a horrible human being. He killed George Floyd. He's going to jail. But this is more than just a few bad apples. This is systematic.
Right. This is the tip of the iceberg, as it were.
This is systematic. And it is a plague that is consuming this country. And again, you can be pro law enforcement, but still admit, hey,
change,
you know what?
Needs to happen.
Something needs to happen. We're not sure what that is.
I don't know.
Whether it's training, whether it's who diversity,
what is it, civilian,
whether it's the whole thing with the argument of defunding the police of that different resources need to be allocated to different ways. That if it's something like mental health. Issue,
right, make sure that there's a psychiatrist or whatever
that maybe should handle that and not a police officer,
or the psychiatrist should be there with you, right,
so on and so forth.
Right.
But to say that there is not a systematic problem with policing in this country is either willful ignorance or just, what did I say last time? You're
you're just a fucking racist. I'm not. I agree with you. But it's like I said. I don't think there's. I think there are just people who it's like, and we know people like this who it's just like, well, that doesn't happen to me, so it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And I don't even know I don't even know if that falls under willful ignorance or naivete or I don't think that makes them a racist. I just think that makes them like it doesn't affect me, so it's not a real thing. But I don't know.
But whether it's willful ignorance or racism, if I tell you, hey, this is happening to me.
Well, yes.
This is what's going on.
This is how I feel.
And I am telling you, right? You can't say, "Oh, I don't know," because if you have, I don't know the number, legions of people telling you, "Hey, we get treated differently by the police because of the color of our skin. Hey, look at the stats. Look how many unarmed black men specifically have been killed in the last few years
amount of time,
compared to other people."
Right.
This is the problem. If we're telling you what the problem is and you refuse to at least acknowledge it, because you don't have to know all the you don't have to have all the answers.
Nobody does.
You don't have to be like, well, police should be reformed and A, B, C, D, bullet points, right? But at least acknowledge that there is an inequity and there is a problem. That is part of the problem. Right, people don't want to acknowledge that, and it's a shame.
But that's part of a much bigger problem.
Oh well, no. That's why everything becomes polarized.
Because to your point, it's just people just don't like. Again, if I am telling you that I feel a certain way about something because it has affected me personally, don't invalidate that by saying no, that's not true.
Right.
No, you're just being oversensitive. I'm like, maybe I am being oversensitive, but what?
Because
you know what? Maybe but I'm being oversensitive because it's about me.
Because I saw a lot of comments of people like, well, but George Floyd wasn't an angel, and George Floyd.
That's not the issue at hand.
George Floyd, shouldn't have used a counterfeit bill. I'm like, that is actually irrelevant in this
then
point.
What we're saying is that if you're a counterfeiter, you should be killed.
Right. That's irrelevant in this point. Because first of all, from a constitutional perspective, you denied this man's due process. So let's just start at that.
Right.
You denied, aside from the fact that you murdered him,
right.
You denied this man his constitutional due process. Right. So again, to the people that are like, well, but nobody's saying he was an angel. Nobody's saying that, he was, Mother Teresa.
Yeah, he was,
but he doesn't have to be. He was a human being, right? That may or may have not done something, quote, illegal.
Which we'll never know.
Right. He may or may have not done something illegal. What he allegedly did was a counterfeit bill.
It wasn't a violent offense.
So it wasn't like this, to begin with, was a violent crime
Right.
that he was being accused of. But even regardless, like, that is not the way you do things.
Right.
You know, you arrest someone, you take them into custody, and you do an investigation. You don't take the matters into your own hands, and that's the problem. That, you know, the thing with policing is, and I'm not a cop. I've never been a cop, so I can't speak from the perspective of an officer. But you know, these are people with a lot of responsibility and a lot of power in their hands, and it's like
and as we said, cops know that day that they're going out to the job, and they do not know if they're coming back.
Right. And it's not to belittle them or belittle anything they say, but they have a lot of power in their hands. And with power comes a lot of responsibility.
As Spider-Man told us.
So if a cop screwing up on the job does not have the consequences of
That me screwing up
you
on the
screwing
job.
up at the job.
Yeah.
Right? So because you are a job with higher consequences,
You should be held to a higher standard.
a higher standard and under more scrutiny. And I would think that if you're an officer, you know, this is something that you elected to do,
Right.
right? And hopefully you did it for all the right reasons.
yeah.
For civic duty, you know, which is commendable, right?
Yeah, we didn't become cops.
It's commendable, right? We didn't become cops, but you also have to understand that because of the amount of power and responsibility that you have, but specifically power
There's
over
an
other
expectation.
people, you are going to be held at a higher standard to an enormous amount of scrutiny.
Yeah.
And that comes with a job. And that is something that...
And if you can't handle that,
Then do something
I
else.
think there's other options. There's even other options within police work.
Right.
Go into forensics.
Whatever.
CSU.
Yes. SVU.
No, because SVU still, you might have a perp.
Oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I was content with it. I think obviously it's a move in the right direction.
Right.
But there's still a lot of work to be done.
Well, but all work has to start with the first step.
It does.
And I think, like you said, if this is the first step and hopefully it continues down that path, then you know what? Then that's a positive out of a negative, because I don't think anybody would deny that this is a negative situation.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about pastelitos.
Always.
Right? And one of our outros is your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cafecito.
Yep.
And we're going to cover all three of those in this episode.
We're talking about croquetas now?
We are talking about croquetas because we talked about pastelitos.
And we're going to talk about cafe.
And we're going to talk about cafe. So now we're going to talk
Very
about la croqueta.
in-depth.
Have you heard about the exploding croquetas?
Wait. Is that like a dance troupe?
From a croqueton?
No.
Oh my gosh. So...
Wait. Exploding croquetas.
Exploding croquetas.
Like boom.
Boom.
Okay.
Boom, cheeky, boom.
Oh, it's an appendix?
Man, whoever caught that reference. It's a Cuban
It's a Cuban appendix, yes.
So, a croqueton is this restaurant in Camagüey, in Cuba.
Oh, okay. So this is from the motherland. Okay.
That sells croquetas.
As the name would imply.
Right. And there has been a pesky little problem.
They keep
exploding. So what happens is that they sell the croquetas for you to make at home.
So they sell the croqueta or like the ingredients?
They sell the croqueta frozen for you to make at home.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But this is Cuba. This doesn't have nutrition facts. You don't know what's in it.
That's true. And they don't necessarily have just like a microwave.
They don't have directions. They give you like a frozen, I don't know.
Pack of things.
Of things that look croqueta and rayos sabe lo que eso tiene adentro.
Pero dicen que es croqueta.
And
and you take it home.
You take it home and you fry it.
Yes,
right?
Because we know in Cuba we love to fry everything.
Right. But as you know, when you fry things, frying something at 150 degrees is very different than frying something at 350 degrees. Right. So what has happened is, and this hasn't happened to one person or two people or three people, this has happened already to dozens of people, is that they will heat up the oil, and they put la croqueta in there, and when la croqueta reaches a certain temperature,
se
explota. And then the problem is that it's like a huge explosion.
Hello, of course.
And these people, you have to see the pictures online. They have had severe burns.
Claro, si eso es grasa. That's pure oil.
Look at this poor man.
Ay, espérate, hold on. Oh my God. Ay, pobre.
Yes.
Todo eso por una croqueta.
So this
How long has this been happening?
It's been happening for quite some time, for at least several months.
Why
So-
do people keep buying from the
So
croqueta?
the producer of the croquetas, apparently in Cuba, there's still a consumer like
a
telephone
watchdog?
line. No, like a consumer hotline.
Oh, okay.
Or like a place where you can email. That the place that I guess does these croquetas is a company called Prodal. Prodal _Cuba, and they actually tweeted. This was their tweet.
So wait. Okay. So there's these croquetas are being sold at El Croquetón
Right,
in Camagüey.
right.
Are they produced by
They're
El
probably
Croquetón?
produced by this company Prodal. I don't know anything about this company. I don't know if it's a Cuban company. Seguro que son croquetas rusas.
That's the problem. They're full of vodka.
Right. So they had to actually issue a statement. And this is what Prodal _Cuba on Twitter stated. Es un error común al freírlas. El aceite debe de estar a unos 180 grados, but I bet you nobody in Cuba has a thermometer because, you know.
Or has ever heated anything under less than 200.
El aceite debe estar a unos 180 grados. La croqueta debe de estar a temperatura ambiente.
So it can't be frozen.
Y no freír muchas a la vez. En el caso de la croqueta criolla, al tener una masa más densa, se abren con más violencia.
Oh my God.
Gracias por comunicar sus preocupaciones. And they actually have a hotline.
Okay.
Like,
I want to call the hotline right now and find out so many things.
Yes.
Also, what do they mean by like violent, like the violent
se
croqueta?
abren con violencia. Because what people are saying is...
They're just dumping the frozen croqueta.
What they're explaining is they're putting the frozen croqueta, which that's how you... I mean, when I've made croquetas, that's how I make them.
But you take them straight from the freezer and dump them in?
I'm not sure if you're not supposed to, but again, it's not like this is coming with any directions.
This is true.
Right? How to make proper croqueta. It's not like in Cuba, you know how we were talking about torts and liability and all that stuff?
There's no reasonable misuse.
There's no reasonable misuse, yes.
No.
About how people can fry how people can fry
How people can fry the croqueta?
I said fry. How people can fry the croquetas. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, these croquetas don't come in like the caserita box.
No, there's no instructions. This is you got home and
so what happens is apparently, I guess the oil, people are heating up the oil too much. You know, again, it's not like people have these like fancy thermometers that we have here.
No,
you know,
eso es una olla ahí.
Imperialist United States, where you can measure, you know, and gauge how hot your oil is. And what happens is that when they're putting the croqueta in the oil, it disintegrates.
Or blows up.
And then when it disintegrates, it blows up. Like, actually, here, there's, in this article that I was reading on it, it gives, I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny.
It would be funny if there weren't people getting seriously injured.
So it says here, the man they're talking about in the article, it says, he put in the familiar croquetas, as they're called in Spanish, in a frying pan.
Is this NPR?
No, this is NBC News. In a frying pan with oil on the stove. Waited for it to get hot and put some of the croquettes.
Oh, God.
The croquettes into cook.
We have problems with this article already.
Sorry after, the croquettes disintegrated like dynamite, shooting
Coño.
sparks of oil into the air.
Sorry, I feel horrible.
And then he's like,
I feel
quote,
for this man.
I fried them as usual and let them toast a little bit because my girl likes them that way. But when I got closer to look at them, one exploded and bathed my face and chest in boiling oil. Then all the others began to explode. So it's like,
oh my God, it was multiples.
It's like fireworks of croquetas.
This is like the worst episode of Willy Wonka.
Yes. I mean, again, I just want to put out there, we're not
We feel
laughing
horrible for the
at
man.
these poor people because we're looking
yeah.
at the pictures.
And they're horrible. But because I'm picturing it as like a cartoony way, like
only
the
in communist
scenario.
Cuba where they'll be exploding croquetas.
Right. You've never heard of this happening anywhere.
Right. I mean, here in the United States, we
I'm
would
sure
just
it's happened.
Here in
but
the United States, we would probably capitalize on it and make it a Yankee Candle scent.
Albisa, get on it.
Yes.
Albisa,
Albisa candles.
you have your marching
exploding
orders.
croquetas.
Yes.
Boom. boom. I'm thinking of like in Super Mario Brothers 1 when you get to the castle to the flag.
The fireworks. That's
Boom,
what I'm saying.
boom,
I'm
boom.
picturing it, especially based on the description. I'm picturing it in like a very cartoony way, right? Where it's just like pew pew pew, like
You're like,
croquetas
you
flying
run into the
everywhere.
kitchen, "Pero qué fue eso?" And then you spot flying croquetas debris everywhere. En los gabinetes, en el techo.
That must be the
You know, todos los sartenes se llenaron de croquetas debris.
no, and then because that's oil, toda la grasa's all over the
la
kitchen now.
grasa.
That's god.
Y después now you're burned.
And
Y
on top
ahora
of that-
limpiar el
On
show
top of that,
ese.
tienes que ir al policlínico.
Tienes que ir a policlínico. And then you have to clean all that bullshit.
When you get
and
home.
You probably don't have good cleaning products.
That's
It's not
true.
like you have Dawn that cuts the grease.
There is no grease cutting.
Yes.
I'm sure
So,
ducks die
this
from
is
grease.
just a bad situation.
It's just a bad situation
all
all
around.
around.
And you know, it probably caused the grease fire. So, yes.
Lo único bueno es que la casa en Cuba are like concreto.
Son de placa, chico. Eso aguanta cualquier cosa.
Por eso, that's the only good scenario here, that the house was probably not going to burn down.
So, my parents in hurricane season, when a hurricane is coming, hay que poner los paneles, porque tú sabes que las casas aquí no sirven, porque en Cuba las casas eran de placa. Y eso venía un huracán y como si nada. And I'm like, yeah, eran de placa, which placa pretty much means that the whole entire house was made of reinforced concrete, including the roof.
Yeah.
That's why houses in Cuba, except with the exception of like colonial homes that were 100 years old, that's why houses and apartment buildings in Cuba look like shoeboxes stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, pretty
because
much.
they're all square, made out of cement.
And they stand the test of time.
I mean, they do, but they're ugly as fuck.
Right.
You know, like,
It's a trade-off.
yes.
It's a trade-off.
But they say it so proud, like, no, porque en Cuba la casa de nosotros era hecha de placa. And I'm
Yes,
like,
I too aspire to live in a shoebox one
yes,
day. Yes.
But yeah, exploding croquetas in Cuba. And a croqueton, of all places. I'm surprised nobody has opened up a croqueton.
Well, don't do it now.
Well,
It has mala fama.
Well, yes, for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons, yeah.
So
pointing
earlier
a
this
finger at
week,
me and everything.
So I'm not saying this from a bragging point because I'm not a bragger and I don't like to, like, I don't like to say certain things because they just come across as.
Okay, but sometimes you gotta be proud
So
of yourself.
I got a Tesla.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So I got a Tesla. And earlier this week, I posted on my personal Instagram a video of my Tesla on autopilot.
Oh,
it was,
yes.
It was driving itself. Right? Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's so freaking cool that it drives
I
itself.
would be terrified.
At first you are, but then... So the autopilot, how it works... Actually, there's a good explanation as to why I brought this up. So the autopilot, how it works is the car steers itself.
Yes.
Right? And when you're on cruise control, it does the whole adaptive cruise control thing that it could read when how far a car is in front of it, and it adjusts the speed so you could have a comfortable distance.
Okay, so it's not like it just sets it up at 40 and go.
No,
Okay.
the car shifts itself and it accelerates accordingly.
Okay.
Right? So you can really be on autopilot and have a cheeseburger.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Or a pastelito.
Or a
Look at
pastelito.
pastelitos in the car. No. Mucho reguero.
You know, mucho reguero, but your Tesla doesn't look like it has lots of crevices.
No, but still, mucho reguero. Mucho
So it might be okay.
Because we look, you know, pastelitos, you have to eat in that position, position.
That's true. You
where
have to
put
always your hand underneath.
under your
Yeah,
chin,
that's true.
you
That's
know?
true. Yeah,
That's a that's the pastelito
is true.
position.
T-shirt idea.
Pastelito position.
Pastelito position.
Now we gotta get somebody. Well, anyway,
We'll figure it out.
But the autopilot thing with the autopilot system, you have to keep your hand on the steering wheel.
Oh, okay.
Even if
okay.
you're not steering, you have to. The steering wheel
It basically has to know that there's a human being.
Yes,
at
the steering
helm.
wheel has
Okay.
to know
Okay.
that there's somebody there. And in fact, if in like I think 40 seconds or something, it senses that there's not.
You have to have both hands or just one?
Just one. You have to touch the steering wheel in some way.
okay.
If it senses that there's nothing there, it will flash and it will eventually turn off.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that same day that I posted that video, later that day, news broke of these two people that were killed in a horrible, I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but a horrible car crash with a Tesla.
Oh my God.
That the Tesla was on autopilot and it slammed into a tree and it exploded. It caught
Oh
fire.
my God.
Yeah. But they found that there was nobody on the driver's seat.
Oh no.
So then now, the whole Tesla autopilot system is under review. And the thing with Teslas is that Teslas run like a car, like a phone.
Okay.
They could take features away by an update.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were telling me. Yeah.
So
yeah. Or add features.
With an update.
With
an update.
Yeah.
So, now it's under review and all that. And, unfortunately, so in the world of torts in law,
okay,
you do have to account for foreseeable neglect, for foreseeable misuse.
I know it's not the one that you meant, but we've been talking about food. Now you said torts, and I'm just hungry again.
So it's kind of like, I think I've explained this before,
yes.
that when you design a chair.
Oh, like with the Gorilla Glue.
Well,
no, but that's where it came up. That's where it came up.
The Gorilla Glue. Yes, like when you design a chair, you have to foresee that people are gonna stand on that chair,
right? And you have to account for it.
You have to account for it in its design,
right?
So if the chair is not, if the chair is not sturdy enough to have somebody standing on it, you either have to put a label,
right,
or you have to redesign it,
right.
So there has to be, when you design something or you put something out, you have to account for foreseeable misuse.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could say that there could be foreseeable misuse with the autopilot system. Like, there's people who put an orange on they'll cut an orange and almost in half and put it on the steering wheel, so the steering wheel thinks that the hand is on it.
An orange simulates a hand?
No, but it's weight.
The weight. Okay, peso. Okay.
So things like that, and I've actually seen that. So those are ways that you think that you could, when designing it, you could say, okay, I could foreseeably see somebody trying to trick the autopilot.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
But in none of those foreseeable situations did I think of somebody not being in the driver's side.
Just taking a nap in the back seat.
Yeah, that would probably happen. Is that those two guys? There was one in the passenger's front seat. Mm-hmm. He was probably look how cool what this can do.
Yeah, it was a showing off moment.
And he's like, look, I'm gonna go to the passenger side.
And then here we are.
And then here we are. But I thought the timing was crap.
Keep your hands on the wheel,
it's
kids.
Pretty awesome, though.
It is pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I'm like, está bueno cuando vas a Disney World. Que está en the Turnpike Street.
Yes, that's true. Just go.
Just
Dale. Put it at 60 and go.
Put your hand there. Yeah, let the car do the rest.
Look, you have to be careful because you could doze off.
I can't. But oh no. And it has this really annoying beep.
Okay, the annoying beep will help.
It beeps and it vibrates.
Okay. So we've come this far to basically just have a beeper in our car.
Yes.
The pager technology has made its way full circle.
And Tesla stock took a hit. So
as I would imagine. We've talked a lot about pastelitos in this episode. But you know what else is a total staple of any Cuban household, party or not?
Okay.
A cafecito.
Oh, yes, of course.
And this week, we have with us very special guest from Cafe la Llave, Lisette Gaviñas. She is actually the fourth generation of the Gaviña family, the Cafe la Llave dynasty, as it were. And so, we talked to her about the company, the history, and, just what it's like to be a fourth generation coffee roaster. And honestly, it was a great ass conversation. And I cannot wait for y'all to hear it, especially because she sheds, I feel like I'm doing a tongue twister. She sheds some light on the history, which, based on some of the captions I saw on our posts this week, some of you need a little bit of a history lesson on Cafe la Llave and how it is not the same company as that other coffee that we also grew up with in the yellow packaging. So, without further ado, here's our interview with Lisette Gaviñas from Cafe la Llave. Hey, listeners. So, during the time that we've been on doing this podcast, we've had some guests on here who have portrayed iconic roles, sang iconic songs. But our guest today is probably associated with one of the most iconic brands that we can think of. And that goes doubly if you grew up in Miami, in La Habana, going to Ventanitas and having cafecito, okay? We have with us today the Executive Director of Marketing from Cafe la Llave, Lisette Gaviña Lopez. Thank you so much for joining us, Lisette.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
I mean, like we said, it's, Cafe la Llave, look, we grew up in Miami, we're Cuban. It's an iconic brand. I mean, but what I think most people don't know is that how long it has been around. It's been around for, what is it, over 150 years now? It's from the time it was in Cuba, and then you guys brought it over to the U.S. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So my family's been in the coffee business for over 150 years.
Wow.
We started as coffee growers in Cuba and in the provinces of Las Villas. And it all started with my great grandfather and his brother. They left the Basque region of Spain and settled in Cuba as farmers. And my grandfather was born on a family's coffee farm.
Oh, wow.
It was called Hacienda Buenos Aires. And I've heard from people that have visited too that they still call it that, and they call it by the family's name, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, although coffee production is not what it used to be in Cuba, but there still is coffee production. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but my family was in. Sorry.
The building is still there.
The farm, the land, where the coffee was grown, was referred to in my family's name.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But but you are, as I said, 150 years. You are the fourth generation of coffee roasters, right? What does it take to what does that mean, like, to be the fourth generation of coffee roasters? Other than the fact that when good coffee versus not so great coffee. Not to call other brands out or anything, but how does that translate? I mean, to come from a family that this is just part of your blood almost. I mean, that it's thick blood, I'm sure, of being coffee. But what does that mean to you guys? Like, how does that work? Just in the history of La Llave.
Yeah. So our family, coffee for us is every day. We have such a strong passion for coffee, growing up with it, from my parents and generation and my cousins and I. We always, grew up knowing where we came from, that we came from a long line, that we come from a long line of coffee people, starting as farmers and then roasters. And of course, being of Cuban descent, we grew up very, very, Cuban here at home. I didn't realize I was really American until I studied abroad after college. I was like so Cuban, and so coffee for us is an essential part of our lives, not just because it's our business, but culturally it's just so important. Most Latin coffee drinkers, we drink coffee up to 5 times a day. We cannot live without coffee. It's, you wake up with it, you go to bed with it. Cafecito, café de la mood, and it's just essential part of our lives. But I'm so proud of my family. Having we were in the business in Cuba almost 100 years before Castro came into power, and then my family fled Cuba through Spain and started their lives over in Los Angeles. And because my grandfather had grown up around coffee, growing up on the family's farm, learning to grow coffee and then roast coffee, his whole life had been coffee. And so when my family eventually settled in the United States in the early 60s, it was his dream to get back into the coffee business and try to figure out a way back to rebuild the life that was lost. And so it means a lot to me to be now in the fourth generation of Gaviñas in coffee. We carry this legacy of my great grandfather, my great grandparents. Because I have to say, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncles, my dad, my cousins. Now we have a big responsibility on our shoulders, and we're one of the few, truly Hispanic-owned.
Yes, you are.
Business, coffee brands out there, and we are here in our business every single day. We're very committed and very passionate about what we do, and our it's all about goodness, bringing joy and energizing our community. Cafe la Llave was created for really initially for the Cuban community, right? When my family came from Cuba, you couldn't find espresso. I mean, nobody knew what it was. All the coffees.
Antes de llegar los cubanos, el café era una basura en este país. Olvídate.
Yeah, una agua sucia.
Una agua sucia, exactly. Yeah.
Exactamente. Entonces, and no había cafés, there weren't any dark roasts or espresso style coffees. It was all light roast coffees and cans. And so we really had to learn about We wanted to bring the taste of our homeland. Of course, first we made it for us, and then we shared it with our community. But we also had to learn about the American market and other ethnic groups that exist here in LA, like the Vietnamese community, the Middle Eastern community. They all drink coffee a specific way.
Right.
And that's how we were able to, evolve and grow our business. But this is where the true spirit of who we are is with Cafe la Llave and, our people, the people we make it for.
You mentioned coffee, cafecito, being such a big part of our culture. And it sounded to me just in the story you told us, when your grandfather came to this country, it was like he was on a mission, right? Like, this is what I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this back. And not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like aside from, keeping the family business going, it sounded like he really wanted to contribute back to the Cuban culture and to make that community effort. It's a long way of me asking, what do you think it is about cafecito and coffee that has become this cornerstone of, several Latin American and Caribbean cultures, but the Cuban culture in general, I think kind of revolves around a café, right? You go to la ventanita, you go to somebody's house, it's like, ay, espérate, no te vayas, te voy a hacer un café, what do you think it is about coffee? And you're the perfect person to ask, it's such an iconic brand.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, coffee brings people together. Like you said, you share a cafecito with your friend, with your neighbor. Somebody comes over and you offer them a cafecito, and if you don't, you're being rude, right? You're not being a good host if you're not offering them a cafecito.
If you don't offer a cafecito, okay.
And if you don't know how to make it, you better know how to make that cafecito.
Si no sabes hacer café, no te puedes casar. It's just, sorry.
No te puedes casar. You're absolutely right.
Actually a test, right? That there was some eligible person to be married and she didn't know how to make coffee, and it's like, oh, she's out of the running. It's like I wonder what the foundation of thing is.
You're spot on, DJ. I mean, my husband and I, we've been married. We're going to be 16 years married this year, and he makes me coffee every morning. And you better bet that he's a trained barista. And I really say it's a secret to our successful marriage and relationship. So
I gotta ask, did you teach him how to make coffee the right way?
Yeah, actually, of course. He's always had an interest in coffee. He loves coffee too. But yeah, he's been through the Specialty Coffee Association barista training, so he's into it.
So something I wanted to ask you is that, Cafe la Llave being such an iconic brand and being around for over 150 years, it's still a family-owned business. I could only imagine that throughout the trajectory of the company, you've probably been approached to either go public or merge or whatever. What has been the, I guess, company mission statement or goal that you guys have had that it's still a family business?
Yeah, I mean, our family, we've been so lucky and so blessed in so many ways to be able to, start our lives over in the United States and not only build a company, but build a brand like Cafe la Llave that's recognized within our community. Like you said, I mean, the fact that you say it's an iconic brand just gets me so excited because, sure. I mean, you're exactly who we created this brand for, and that is the ultimate reward. When people can buy a product and they take it home with them and they make it not only for themselves but for their families, a product that they're drinking, that they're ingesting, that they're enjoying with not only for themselves but with other people, that is the ultimate reward, and that's what gets us fired up. We like to say we put our love of coffee into everything we do. Everything that has to do with making the coffee, how we take care of our employees, how we take care of our environment. We're just trying to bring goodness to the world through our products and reach more and more people. And because coffee brings you joy, right? It brings you energy, and there's just so much love there. And I think you can taste it when you taste our coffee. You can taste the love and the passion that we put into it.
For sure. It doesn't just come across as assembly line made, if you will. Like, I know it sounds cheesy to say, right? But it's like it has a little something extra, shall we say? And the extra ingredient is love, as they say.
Yeah, and then we really focus on the quality of our products. We source coffees from the best coffee growing regions in the world, and make sure that coffee is consistent batch after batch, because you don't want a good coffee today and a bad coffee tomorrow. So I can't han cambiado algo. No, you want to say no.
Yeah.
This is a product I can trust, and day after day, and.
Yeah, you got to, because if not, it's like you said, if I have and it happens everywhere, right? You can go to a restaurant and be like, I've had great meal, and tomorrow it doesn't taste the same, and the day after that it tastes different. It's like, I don't know what to expect, but that's definitely not the case with you guys at all. And, you don't stay around for 150 years if you're not consistent.
Although I am going to say, though, I'm sure that's like the really old school people who had Cafe la Llave in Cuba. They probably may say it's better because, in Cuba, the sky was bluer, the ground was more fertile, the air was sweeter. So, you can't be with that. You can't mess with that, right?
I know. It's definitely like having wine in Napa, having a cafecito in La Habana. I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely part of the experience that drives the flavor.
Oh my God. It's also interesting to me. I did not know this. Your company is it's Cafe la Llave, but also you guys own Don Francisco's coffee and Gaviña Gourmet coffee as well. So. What would you say is the difference between the three? What makes each one its own lane?
Well, Cafe la Llave is definitely our dark roast espresso coffee that was developed for initially for the Cuban coffee drinker, but now it's definitely for any Caribbean, I would say Caribbean style espresso drinker.
In other words, los cubanos estamos en todo. That's the bottom line here, people. That's what she's trying to say in a very nice way.
You said it, Ish. You said it. We're very proud of our heritage over here. No, but you have people from all over South America, Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, Venezuela that drink the same style of coffee that we do. Dominicans, even some Haitians.
Yeah.
So that's the espresso style coffee, and that's what Cafe la Llave was developed for. That consumer, it's literally one roast profile, dark roast, intense aromatic flavor that we all love in our Latin style coffee. Then our Don Francisco's brand was basically our attempt to enter into the general market. So it was really our answer to American style coffee. So the coffee that you would brew, like your regular brewer in a Mr. Coffee type of brewing. Exactly. And we have different origins, Hawaiian coffees, Colombian coffees, different blends, French roast, and we also have flavored coffees like vanilla nut, Hawaiian hazelnut, like that. And that's available whole bean and ground. So we do have espresso in Don Francisco's. Now we just recently launched our espresso compatible capsules in Don Francisco's, and those are 100% Arabica coffees. So you have more variety. You have it's more of a premium quality, but it's also more of a general market, kind of covering all of the American preferences.
Para lo que le gusta el sabor.
Yeah, de todo un poco, no? De todo un poco. And then our Gaviña Gourmet Coffee is our wholesale brand. So, very many fine restaurants, coffee shops. We even have other ethnic coffees, Middle Eastern coffees, or French roast for the Vietnamese, all under our family name, which is the Gaviña brand. Yeah, but Cafe la Llave really is, our very near and dear to our heart because it's the coffee that we made for ourselves, and now we get to, we get to share it not only with our Cuban community, but all of the different, Latinos out there that love that strong, delicious, intense flavor of a strong, good Cuban style coffee.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned the capsules, and so I definitely did want to bring up, I know that, Cafe la Llave has a partnership with TerraCycle. I love that mug. Of course, I say that and it's an audio medium, right? So yes, she's drinking out of a Cafe la Llave green mug. It's really, but it looked like a sturdy mug. It was like,
it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
And they're iconic hunter green, color.
Yeah, their iconic green color, but it looks like a
Para,
sturdy.
para el cereal con leche y el cafecito también.
Pero oye, how versatile! I love it. Love it. No, what I was saying is, obviously as we're moving, more into the usage of like the capsules and the pods and things like that. I know Cafe la Llave does have a partnership with TerraCycle that allows you to recycle all of these items. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's great about, technology is we can now enjoy our coffee so many different ways, right? So you have, of course, la cafetera that you put on the stovetop. Now there's the electric cafetera, but there's also these... You've never seen the electric cafetera?
I have not, but then again, I'm not blasphemous that way.
Well, yeah, it's a more evolved style of cafetera. But there's also these, single cup technologies, and so now we make our Cafe la Llave available in both the Keurig compatible and also the Nespresso original line compatible capsule, so you can enjoy your cafecito with this, new technology. And the beauty is that we, in partnership with TerraCycle, created a recycling program where it's very easy for the consumer just to sign up on TerraCycle.com, and you download a label. It's free shipping. You ship your capsules once you've collected them, ship them for free to TerraCycle. And then what's interesting is that these capsules are broken down. The coffee is composted that's inside. And then these little plastic pellets are made from the plastic on the capsules. And these pellets can be reused to make either like a plastic lumber material you can use this to make decking, like park benches, playground materials, or you can make plastic, things like this watering can is a plastic watering can to water your garden at home, and this gives a second life to your capsules and your coffee pods.
It's a twofer. It's a recycle and an upcycle.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, that's amazing. I think that shows a lot. What we were talking about earlier, that you're still a family company, and these are things that, you can go ahead and invest in. And because plastic is such a problem today. I mean, we don't have to get into detail about that, but it's such a problem today. And it's great that, you guys are doing something responsible with the what's left of your product, that it could be recycled. So kudos to you. Hats off to you and to, the company for choosing to do something that's so responsible. That's great. That's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, DJ. Yeah, like you said, we're a family business and we have a long-term view on our business. And, of course, part of that is behaving in running our business where in a way that sustainability is important, and there's the waste that's generated after you use these pods. So it's up to really the consumer to get involved and recycle these pods and keep them out of landfill. But we also do our part here at our company, where we actually our facility is a zero waste to landfill plant, meaning that through reduce, reuse, recycle programs, we are basically redirecting, I think it's 97% of our waste. So we're considered we're considered a zero waste to landfill facility. And we do a lot to reduce our, consumption of water, of electricity. We have natural light in our plant, so we can use natural light versus, electric light bulbs during the day. And we do a lot to give back to the farmers too, because we realize, having been farmers ourselves, that you can't have coffee's not sustainable without the coffee farmer. And so we invest back into the coffee growing communities where we source our coffees from to help improve the quality of life of the farmer. But, we do our part, but there's still a lot more that can be done for sure.
I mean, even with that said, you are definitely doing us all proud. As two Cuban Americans to another Cuban American, like, that is fantastic. And that's...
No, and you're an example to other companies. So, again, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and hopefully, I'm in line to get my vacuna this week, so hopefully we'll get, this, and we can go out to California and go out to the factory and take a tour. It definitely sounds fantastic. Like,
Mi casa es su casa, cuando quieran.
Now, as we wrap up, I have two questions. Now, the first one is, I was told to ask you about a baby pacifier.
Yes. Yes. So yes. So as you can imagine, I mean, aside from being Cuban, right? I've been drinking coffee my entire life, and it really started with, of course, the influence of my grandparents. And my grandfather used to take, my pepe, and he would dip it in the espresso and say, si van a vivir del café, tienen que aprender a tomar el café. They have to learn to drink it if they're going to live from it. And so those are the stories, like my parents and tell us, and coffee has always been a part of my life, and I have a 7-year-old, and I give him coffee too. He needs to learn to drink. He loves it. He loves his cold brew. I have to be very careful with him when I give him my cold brew. I drink the whole thing.
Lady, you are brave giving a 7-year-old coffee. I don't have kids, and I know that much. I mean, that's kudos to you for that alone. Forget everything else. That shows your bravery.
It's cultural for us too. Like the Cuban breakfast is, café con leche con pan.
Yeah, café con leche.
My have a 7-year-old as well, and he's not a coffee drinker, but tete with café was definitely a thing, and he's had his little tacita since he was like a year old. Like, we have pictures of him con la tacita. Like, coffee's not foreign to him whatsoever. But yeah, because it's part of the culture. I feel like coffee is one of those things, especially with Cubans, that it's one of those trademarks of our culture that we don't know how big it is. Well, in your case, your family is coffee, but for everybody else, we don't realize what a big part of our culture and of our life it is until we take a moment of reflection and kind of, look in from the outside, that it's like, my gosh, coffee is paramount in relationships and at work. The rest of the country has water cooler moments.
Yep. We
have in Miami, we have and it's those differences that really shape who we are. So that's so important.
That's so true. And it's like even the aroma of coffee. When you smell somebody brewing coffee or making coffee, all of a sudden all these people start coming out of the woodwork, like, oh, está haciendo café, dame un cafecito. Yeah. It's like a Pavlovian response, to the smell of it.
Yes. That's perfectly
said. So my last question before we wrap up, the age-old question. Argued over probably many a ventanita, many a nochebuena. Colada or cortadito?
Cortadito all the way.
I like that she didn't hesitate.
If it's the morning, I guess there's a time of day to it. Cortadito in the morning, colada in the afternoon. It's your coffee break with your...
Okay. That was a very political answer. That she doesn't want to upset Big Cortadito.
But I do love a cortadito. How about you?
I just, however you serve it, I will take it. As long as it's coffee, as long as it's un cafecito, I'm good. I'm good. I genuinely I have no preference.
Yes, really funny story, Lisa, before we wrap up. A couple of years ago, we were at this place here in Miami called Las Palmas. That's a very famous place here they make churros and chocolate. And here in Miami, when it dips below 70, it's Arctic. It's don't go outside because it's winter. So people go to
Exactly.
So people go outside people go get the churros and chocolate. And we went a few years ago with Ish, and it was 10:30, and it pide un café con leche. And the Cuban lady in the counter, just like your Cuban grandma, is like, tú sabes lo que a esta hora tomarte un café con leche. And you know, is it great customer service? No, but I am mad at you. It's that's who we are.
Yeah, that's so funny. Did she give it to you? Did she make it?
Oh, she did. She made it, but it was just like, pero I'm ordering a café con leche. I'm paying for it. Tú no me lo estás regalando, you know. But yeah, but
I'm
that's...
surprised. I'm surprised she's like, no, yo te voy a hacer una colada y te la vas a tomar bien tomada.
But I needed the café con leche to dip the churros in.
I know.
Pero
That
bueno,
sounds wonderful. I'm going to check that out next time. Las Palmas.
it's absolutely great. And again, like DJ said, you know, it's we're not lying. When it goes to like 70 degrees, we're like, it's freezing. Put on your ponte el suéter and head on to La Palma and have your churros. It's what we do.
Ay, qué rico.
But again, Lisette, thank you so much for joining us. Like, I know, you know, you're a very busy lady. But
it's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Honestly, you know, desde que yo tengo sentido de la vida, you know, Cafe la Llave has been there. And just thank you for that, because again, it's one thing to have an iconic Hispanic, Latino, you know, brand, but to know that it does come from the same culture that we come from, and that you guys are putting forth, you know, all of your best efforts to not just have a, you know, successful company, but a sustainable company that does give back. You know, like I mentioned, I know you're the 4th generation coffee roaster, but I feel like you're already preparing things so that you have, you know, the 5th and the 6th and the 7th generation. So thank you for that. You know, it's commendable.
Thank you, Ish. I really appreciate, you know, all of your support, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing and keep making you proud.
And we're back.
All that you wanted to know about Cafe la Llave, but we're afraid to ask.
I think the history of it is great. That they're like 150 years old.
Yeah. I mean, it's great how it was like, you know, it went from Cuba to Spain and then, you know, to this country when they got here, and that it was, you know,
wait, Jose Manti could have had a Cafe la Llave.
Of course he had it. You know, he was drinking it while he was writing Zapatico de Rosa.
Oh.
But you know, the fact that her grandfather came to this country and was like, I'm going to rebuild this. Like, this is going to be the legacy. It's a testament. You know, it's a testament to determination and really getting shit done. And you know what? I also just want to say thank you, Cafe la Llave, for all of the coffee you sent us.
Yes.
And all of the swag. We had a blast actually making, I know some of you have probably seen our videos this week that we did in partnership with them for Earth Day. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, just, you know, acting silly but with a good message.
And I prefer green over yellow. So
yeah, exactly. Ugh. Warm colors. Ugh.
Yeah. So yeah, they were great to work with, and she was so delightful.
Yeah, she really was.
She was great.
Can't wait to get to LA and see the factory.
Yes.
That is what I really I'm like excited about.
Yeah. So are you thirsty?
Yes, I am.
So my
no, we're not having chocolate milk.
My last soda's quick and easy.
Okay.
I just want to give it to the jurors in this Derek Chauvin trial for murder. I think that. Have you ever been on a jury?
I have.
Really?
It was, and I was on a jury for about like a week and a half.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't.
Okay,
It wasn't. It was not a
this
sexy case.
Fascinating is that I will never be on a jury.
Oh, that's true. You can't.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not even that. There's not a rule that says that people that are attorneys or went to law school.
You're not.
There's not a rule, but I will never be on a jury because the whole point is to pick people that don't know about jurisprudence.
Right. The minute you say that you're a lawyer, they're like, nope.
That's the whole, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I would love to be in a jury. Like,
it wasn't a sexy case. It was about real estate.
I would totally be the foreperson.
I fell asleep Not fell asleep, but like...
Okay, well, I wanted to give my soda to those people who stay awake, to jurors, because you know what? Jurors have the toughest job. And I know everybody shrugs at when they get jury duty, they get that summons, they're like, oh, I'm not going to do this. But you know what? That is, not only is that your civic duty, but that is what people have fought and died for, to have a legal system where you're judged by a jury of your peers. And even us, that we come from a Cuban background, that is what in Cuba they would die to have right now. A jury or a legal system that has a jury. And the legal system in the US is by no means perfect. There are a lot of flaws and inequities in it. A lot.
But at its base.
But it at its base, it tries to be fair, even if it hasn't been. So there's a promise that it can be. And when you are a juror, you have, again, going with responsibility, a great deal of responsibility in your hands. You know, depending on the case, you could have somebody's life in your hands. Yeah. So, you know, especially for more complicated, usually criminal cases, it's not an easy feat, and it's not something we should take for granted, because so many people would love to have something like that. So my last soda, my 12 pack of soda for 12 jurors.
Oh yeah,
goes this week to
the
jurors, the jury in this case, but to jurors. It is your civic duty. You know, so many times we complain. You know, what do I always say? You people complain, but nobody's ever part of a solution.
Right.
So many times we complain about our government, complain about our legal system, but we're the first ones that when we get a summons, we're like, ugh,
I can't be bothered. Yeah.
We complain about elected officials, but we never vote. So it's like, I mean, ¿qué tú quieres? What do you want?
Yeah. Decídete.
Yeah, shut up. Like, do what you need to do. So, jurors, here's some
12 pack of soda.
Soda for you.
Yes, awesome. Well, my last soda is actually I decided, because I was watching this person on Jimmy Kimmel last night. And so my last soda is going to former President George W. Bush.
Really? By what, his book?
Because he has a book out now. For those of you who don't know, George Bush paints now.
Yes.
And he released a book called Out of Many, One. And the book features the stories of 43 immigrants across the spectrum. So they're public servants, they're athletes, they're business leaders, they're educators. You know, it's not just, you know, a one-size-fits-all type situation. And he said the reason he wanted to do that is because he wanted to support changes to the U.S. approach to immigration. You know, his thinking is, the system's broken, you know, let's fix it. And by no means does he think that he has all the answers. But, you know, I think it's interesting to see, like you've said many times, you know, it's one thing to disagree with a politician on policy or the way they approach something. But, you know, here's a situation where I'm sure many of our listeners probably fundamentally disagree with a lot of his policies. But here's a president who's still using his platform for something positive. You know, be it, again, you can have your opinions about it, but, you know, I think it's interesting that, you know, he even said this, and I think this ties back to kind of what we were talking about, the history of Cafe la Llave with them coming to this country. This is a quote from an article that with NPR. He says, you know, the beautiful thing about America is that you can be a citizen and still hold on to your heritage, and that's important.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I read that, I thought, it's so true.
He says that his greatest regret of his administration was not able to achieve immigration reform.
Yeah, he's pro DACA. He's, I mean, you know, in the current GOP, he's unrecognizable.
Although that is very important, I would have wanted him to say the Iraq War, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think he's such a, I don't want to use the word interesting, but multi-dimensional.
He's
multi-dimensional.
No, but he's more multi-dimensional than I think people give him credit for.
They do. And I think that he is someone...
He was great on Jimmy Kimmel.
I don't mean this as a criticism. I have a lot of problems with the George W. Bush administration. A lot. Right. And if we would have had the podcast back then,
who knows what it would have,
bitching about everything I had to say.
But you would have bitched about policy.
Right. Yes, it was about policy. But I think that he is someone, and I'm not saying this as a criticism, I think that he is somebody who probably should not have been president in terms of personality. I think George W. Bush, and again, there's a long conversation that we could have at another time. I think he is somebody that I think that you have to be sort of, I don't mean ruthless in a bad way, but ruthless in an effective way, an economical way when you have so much power. And I think that George Bush probably made a lot of really bad decisions with the people he surrounded himself with. And I think that was probably his biggest downfall, because I think that at the core, he probably wanted to do what was right.
I get that impression a lot.
Which, even if ultimately he ended up doing what was wrong.
But in his heart, he felt he was doing something for the good.
For the good. And I think that he he was really badly informed. He had terrible, absolutely terrible people around him, which is his fault. That is who he surrounded himself by. I mean, he could have picked whomever for his cabinet. But I think that is the problem. That is why George W. Bush, as much as his policies, I didn't have the angst against him as I did
as a human being.
This previous person.
Right.
Because whereas this previous person, personality-wise, he was just an asshole, and he was provocative, and he liked to offend people. I think that George W. Bush did not do those things. I think that he wanted to do what was right, even if
he was genuinely trying.
Even if he ended up doing what was wrong, and what was wrong to a lot of people. And a lot of the mistakes that he did cost a lot of lives. That's why I always say what I just said, that I wish his biggest regret was the invasion of Iraq. But going back to what you're saying, he seems to be, now that post-presidency, he seems to be at a place of kind of reckoning, that he understands the weight that he had. He sort of understands his consequences, and I guess he's trying to make some peace of it. I don't know. I sometimes I wish that it could be sort of like him, that if we remember the George Bush administration, it was very contentious. It was not a walk in the park. But even then, that we were dealing with the aftermath of September 11th, even then, I think that there was still some civility and discord in terms of how we
had these conversations.
And which now is...
I think a lot of that is also social media wasn't around.
Yeah, or not like this. Which actually, it's funny, to shift gears a little bit before we close the show. I was speaking to somebody yesterday. He's 24.
So a child.
And he was... I was talking to him about MySpace. And
did you explain who Tom was?
No, he had heard of MySpace. He's like, my mom was on MySpace. How one word can make you feel so old. But he remembers MySpace, and I was telling him, I'm like, that MySpace, looking back on it now, was very special insofar that I feel that MySpace was the first social media platform that had widespread everybody. I don't want to say everybody was on MySpace.
It had traction.
But a lot of people were on MySpace.
It was the first popular.
A lot. It was the first mainstream.
There we go.
Mainstream social media platform.
Right.
That if not everybody was on it, at least half of the people that you knew were on it. Right? And there was a certain innocence to that, because since it was new, it was used for what social media was designed, which was to share pictures and share your life and compliment each other. So it's funny, because when I look back on MySpace, I look at it like that. I look at it very fondly. That I remember I used to post pictures of whatever, and we used to see other people
change our backgrounds.
Yes, and it's like, look at this person, or look at that person. In a very kind of naive,
there was an innocent
way, because it was like the first mainstream. And now we're with the ratchetness and toxicity of Twitter, who is named after Larry Bird.
It is what it is.
Wow. On that note, oh Tom, we missed you, Tom.
I wonder where Tom is today. I wonder if he still has that whiteboard.
Okay, so one last joke before we leave, but our listeners will love this. So we have a friend in common that we love her. I will take a bullet for that girl. But she's a little absent-minded.
She has her moments.
A little absent-minded.
Un poco despistada sometimes.
Sometimes she lacks a little bit of common sense. But I love this girl. I would take a bullet for her.
Yes, we would.
I love her more than I love Demi Lovato.
I would hope.
Oh no, we cut that out. But anyway, so when we all joined MySpace, remember that when you would join MySpace, your first friend was Tom.
Right.
Tom and his white T-shirt with the black,
the
with the whiteboard in the back, and that was your first friend. Right. And we were all like, our whole big group of friends from high school, we were all on MySpace. And she innocently asked one day, she's like, "Who's Tom? I don't remember him from high school." I think we went along with it. We're like, you don't
We're like,
remember,
you remember Tom?
You don't remember Thomas Southwest?
Hello, he was in biology.
Yeah, like Tom.
How do you not remember Tom?
That's why he's in all of our pages, because we all knew Tom.
I know. Sat with us at lunch.
Yeah, like
Clearly.
Tom came to my house for one of my birthdays.
Bro, he was at the 15.
So we'll leave you with that. So we hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. Remember to grab your pastelito, your non-explosive croqueta, and your cafecito. And thank you for joining us.
Make sure it's
everybody.
Cafe la Llave.
Have a great weekend. Pero Friday. Have a great time, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.